Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Are you having a good time?
Yes.
All right. Well, it's coming down to the end. And all good things must come to, well, no, that's not a true statement. Anyway, I want to say good afternoon again, and my name is Andrew Silas. I'm a wellness practitioner. I'm a certified stress management coach, certified sleep science coach, and certified wellness coach. I've been engaged in the ministry of healing and health education for almost 40 years. I've traveled throughout the U.S. and other countries teaching the principles of health and healing. And presently, what I like doing best is talking about stress and sleep. Now, so I want to ask you a question. How many of you think you may be under stress, some kind of stress? All right, most of us, right? Most of us. And my sister said no stress. Oh, wonderful. Well, several years ago rather, I was visiting a husband and wife. I was doing a consultation with the wife. She was diabetic, she was hypertensive, and different health problems. And, so we were talking, and as I started to talk about healthy eating and diet, she said, wait a minute. I don't get it. I try my best to eat healthy, and I have all these problems, and my husband, he eats what he wants, but he's not sick. And the husband said, well, you know why? My wife worries about everything and everyone. I allow nothing to bother me. And I thought about that, and I remembered something that Sister White said in the book Ministry of Healing. You know, she talks about how the mind and the body are connected, and how a lot of our diseases originates in the mind. And then she mentions something. She says anxiety, guilt, remorse, and she listed some what we may call negative emotions. And she says these things break down the life forces and invite decay and death. And so as this lady is talking, the husband is talking, I'm thinking about that. And years later, I'm in church one Sabbath, and a church sister who knew me introduced me to another church sister who had a terminal disease. So she wanted me to talk to the lady, and as I'm talking to her, I'm listening to her. She did most of the talking, and I concluded that I cannot give her any suggestions. She's already doing the things that I would recommend, so I promised to pray for her. Well, 2 months later, I was inquiring from the lady that introduced me to her. I was inquiring about her, and the lady said, oh, she passed away. And I said, what? But, I'm thinking to myself, normally a person, based on what she was doing, normally a person doing those things will recover their health. So I said to the lady, could you tell me something about her life? What do you know about her? She said, well, her husband her husband divorced her and took the children. And I said, oh, she did have cancer, but what she really died from is a broken heart. And the reason why I'm saying so is because of what I read in that chapter in the Ministry of Healing, where Sister White said, these things, the grief and anxiety are two of the things she mentioned. And this lady, obviously, she was grieving. And Sister White said that these things break down the life forces and invite decay and death. Years later, I'm finding so many scientific evidences that validates the idea that there is a direct correlation between our mental state and our physical health. Okay, so let's talk about some of that today. So how chronic stress impacts your health. And notice, I didn't put how stress impacts your health, I put how chronic stress impacts your health. There's a difference, and we'll see. Okay, so I'm going to talk about, I'll mention 3 types of stresses. One, acute stress. And an example of acute stress is meeting a deadline, getting into an argument, or narrowly avoiding an accident. Now, those are stressful situations, right? Then the effects of that is increased heart rate, muscle tension, alertness, and it usually resolves quickly. So that's acute. It happens, it comes and it goes. I remember a neighbor called us one morning. We lived out in northern Maine, and blueberries were blooming at that time. And so she called us and said she was in her garden picking blueberries, and she felt something strange behind her, and she looked around, and there was a bear picking berries. He was on the other side, and both of them turned around and faced each other. And she ran in the house, and the bear ran in the other direction. And so she went into her house, closed the door, and everything was fine. So that was an example of acute stress. Seeing that bear, her body went into stress, but then she ran into her house, and that was fine. It didn't last. And the next type is episodic stress, and the definition is frequent episodes of acute stress, often due to a hectic lifestyle or chronic worry. So can you imagine if, let's say, that happens every day, maybe for 3 months, it would be considered episodic stress. Things that happen frequently, but acute in the sense that they come and go. Then an example of episodic stress is constantly rushing, taking up too many responsibilities, or being a type A personality. And the effects are irritability, anxiety, headaches, and poor sleep. Is anyone here experiencing episodic stress? Okay. Then the next one is chronic stress. The definition is ongoing stress that persists over a long period. For example, financial problems, toxic relationships, chronic illness, or long-term work dissatisfaction. I've had a lady said to me years ago, she said, I know what's killing me, it's my job. It's so stressful. And she's been doing that for years. She was a nurse, actually. And if you've ever been in the nursing, you'll know it could be stressful. And then on top of that, if you're doing night shift work, stress and sleep deprivation, those are 2 major enemies to health. Okay. So how does your body respond to stress? There's something doesn't feel right with this thing. How does your body respond to stress? And this is what we want to really pay attention to. How does your body respond to stress? Because the reality is, as long as we live on this planet, we're always going to have stressors. Correct? Yes. But so that's not the problem. The problem is how our body responds to the stress. Okay. So there is something that we call the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, or the HPA axis. And this is a communication system between the hypothalamus gland, the pituitary gland, and the adrenal cortex. These endocrine system organs create a feedback loop of hormones to activate and regulate your body's stress reaction. Basically, all that means is that when you're faced with a stress situation, this system helps your body to respond. This system becomes activated so that your body could respond, because there is no stress without response. Every time that as we're thinking, the body is responding to our thoughts. If there's stressful thoughts, then the body will respond by way of the HPA axis. Okay, that's what helps our body to respond to those situations. So the hypothalamus, so remember it's the HPA axis. So the hypothalamus secretes the CRH hormone, which messages the pituitary gland, and the pituitary gland produces the ATCH hormone, and that messages the adrenal cortex to produce the stress hormones, right? And one stress hormone that we want to pay attention to is cortisol, right? So this HPA axis, it works together, the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the adrenal cortex. So the hypothalamus receives the stress signals. You know, like when the lady stood face to face with the bear, the hypothalamus picks it up right away, picked up her fear, and then sent a message to the pituitary, and the pituitary sends a message to the adrenal cortex, and the adrenal cortex produces the hormone. It's just amazing how God made this body. And we take so much for granted, we don't know what's going on, you know. All right. So when that lady saw the bear, her body went into what is called fight or flight mode. Fight or flight meaning either she's going to stand and fight or she's going to run. Of course, she ran, right? And now she's so what happens? How is the body prepared for fight or flight? Talking about the HPA axis, how does that make the body ready to fight or to flee? Well, in order for that to happen, the blood pressure has to raise. The blood pressure becomes elevated. The blood sugar becomes elevated. You need energy, you need glucose, right? And the heart rate increases. The muscles also become tensed. So all of these things happen. So is elevated blood sugar good? No, that's not a good thing. Neither increased heart rate, neither high blood pressure. That's not a good thing when they are elevated. But they are needed at this time for fight or flight. But so the lady, after she runs into her house, what happens to the HPA system? It calls back those hormones. It reduces, let me see how I can put it. I'm sorry. Yeah. So now it relaxes. Let's say that it calms down, it relaxes. So because there's no more a need for the pressure to rise, for the sugar to rise, nor for the heart rate to speed up, right? There's no more fight or flight. Everything is back to normal. In other words, cortisol, that stress hormone, is reduced. So everything is back to normal. But suppose day in and day out you're under stress for months. Let's say it's finances. You've lost your income, and you have a mortgage to pay or a rent to pay, food, insurance, and phone, all those things. You have bills to pay, and that's going on for months. You would be under 3, 4, 5 months of stress. Stress becomes chronic, right? And what did I just do? Okay. So the chronic stress, remember, the HPA system is the system that's involved in helping your body respond to the stress. So when the stress is chronic, the HPA system becomes dysregulated. It causes dysregulation, and this puts you at risk for the following health problems. Once in stress management, we say the chronic stress, under chronic stress, the body goes into a state of activation. All right? So there's stress going on all the time. So the HPA system becomes dysregulated, and that causes these problems. Immune system suppression, right? That's number one. Increased susceptibility to infections. Chronic stress weakens the immune system, making you more prone to colds, flus, and other illnesses. Chronic inflammation caused by chronic stress triggers pro-inflammatory cytokines, increasing the risk of autoimmune disorders and arthritis and chronic diseases. All right. When the body's under stress, that's one of the causes of chronic inflammation. When folks tell me, my doctor told me that I have a lot of inflammation, And could you tell me, recommend something for the inflammation? So I asked them, well, what's causing the inflammation? Are you under stress? Or are you sleep deprived? Are you worrying about anything? Are you fussing with somebody, your spouse, your children? You know, I ask all these questions because inflammation is not just caused by food. You know, you hear about these anti-inflammatory foods and all this stuff, but inflammation goes deeper than that. A dysregulated HPA system can cause digestive system disorders, gastrointestinal issues, for example. Stress can worsen irritable bowel syndrome, acid reflux, and ulcers by altering gut microbiome balance and increasing stomach acids. I was listening to an interview with a medical doctor, and he asked the question to his audience. He said, what's the most common health problems for which people go to the doctor's office? What's the most common health problem? And some people said, diabetes, high blood pressure. Say it again.
People even go for a cold.
A cold. But what's the one that most people, what's on the top of the list? Right, you know, so people are saying high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, and he said no. He said digestive issues. And he said the reason is because most people are under stress. Live in a very stressful world, a very stressful society. So that's where most, you know, that most people are affected by gastrointestinal issues because of stress. Poor nutrient absorption. The body prioritizes survival over digestion, leading to nutrient deficiencies and weakened overall health. Right? So there we see the digestive system becomes disturbed. Many, many years ago, I learned that it doesn't matter how healthy you're eating. If you're under stress, you will have digestive problems. You can develop ulcers and so forth. And then hormonal and reproductive health. So chronic stress, which causes your HPA axis to become dysregulated, can cause hormonal and reproductive health. I have a client, I spoke to someone yesterday, and the lady, she said, I just don't feel right, and my hormones are out of whack. No, she said, I'm having hot flashes and all kinds of things, and she just kept saying to me, I just don't feel right. And I went to my doctor, and he doesn't know what's going on. And the first thing I asked her is, are you worrying about anything? Are you under stress? She said, oh yes, I have a lot of stress. And I said, okay, well, there's where we start. You do have some hormonal issues, obviously, because of the symptoms, but let's do some stress management, because stress is involved there. So we have the hormonal and reproductive health. So you have, under the chronic stress, and I'm going to say the things, I'm going to repeat the terms. When your HPA axis is dysregulated because of chronic stress, you could have disrupted sex hormones. Chronic stress reduces testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone levels, leading to low libido. You know what libido is? Sex drive. Low sex drive in men and women, irregular menstrual cycles, and fertility issues. See, again, we're constantly trying to find which herb or vitamin to solve these issues, which herb or which nutritional supplement to serve these issues, when it may very well be the cause caused by chronic stress. You know, then we have thyroid dysfunction. Stress suppresses thyroid hormone production, slowing metabolism and contributing to fatigue, weight gain, and mood disorders. Again, so are you seeing why it's important to manage stress? It's very, very important, and many are stressed. You know, there's a couple of close friends of mine that I haven't seen for years, and finally we met up at church, and so both of them had some major problems. I've been working with them and not seen any results. The doctors don't know what to do. And I asked both of them, "Are you guys under stress?" "Oh, no, we trust God. We're not under stress." So I happened to spend the day with them. And they don't realize the major stress that they're experiencing. Why? Yeah, they're not worrying about bills, but they're constantly picking at each other. They're constantly fighting with each other, not realizing that causes stress, And anyway, then you have when the HPA axis is dysregulated as a result of chronic stress, we have problems with our cardiovascular system. High blood pressure. Stress increases sympathetic nervous system activity, leading to elevated blood pressures and a higher risk of stroke and heart disease. Remember, coming back to the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, remember that system is involved in the way our body responds to stress. And the last part of that hormonal loop is to produce cortisol. When cortisol, so what happens when cortisol becomes increased? High blood pressure, heart rate, and so forth. So under chronic stress, your cortisol is always being released, and it's not lowering. It's not getting lower. So you develop hypertension, and of course, that affects the heart, right? And so stress increases sympathetic nervous system activity, leading to elevated blood pressure and a higher risk of stroke and heart disease. Increased risk of heart disease. Chronic stress raises inflammation, disrupts cholesterol levels, and contribute to arterial plaque buildup, increasing the risk of heart attacks. Again, it's not just our diet. And I can tell you over the years, as I mentioned before, I come across a lot of people who are eating healthy, exercising regularly, but they still have these diseases. And I would always ask, are you worrying about anything? And sometimes I would regret asking, because people open up and they tell you your life story, and you end up being depressed after listening to them. But the point is that it's the stress that's causing the chronic stress. And then we have metabolic system diseases, diabetes, for example, insulin resistance. Excess cortisol raises blood sugar levels and promote insulin resistance, increasing the risk of type 2 diabetes. Then we have weight gain and obesity. Stress increases fat storage, particularly in the abdominal area, which contributes to metabolic syndrome. So if a person may have problem managing weight, can it be that you may be going through chronic stress? So again, with insulin resistance, diet is not the only thing. Lack of exercise is not the only thing. Chronic stress plays a major role. And by the way, I'm going to add right now, I'm going to mention chronic stress along with sleep deprivation. Those are the two things that can cause the HPA axis to become dysregulated and cause these problems. Then we have nervous system and the brain. Cognitive decline. High cortisol levels damage the hippocampus, leading to memory loss, difficulty concentrating, and increased risk of dementia. Chronic stress. Then we have mental health disorders. Chronic stress increases susceptibility to anxiety, depression, and mood swing. Okay, 325. Lack of sleep. Okay, lack of sleep. So now I'm gonna take this into a different direction, right? For me to do a lecture on stress, that takes a lot of time. That will take an hour and a half. But I want to bring in sleep here because there's a relationship. But before we go to, no, we're going to come to that after. So lack of sleep is perceived by the body as a stressor, all right, triggering the HPA axis. So, so chronic stress combined with sleep deprivation can cause the HPA axis to stay activated. Why? Because because the HPA axis recognizes that as a stress factor. And then it says here, this leads to elevated cortisol levels, especially in the evening, which interferes with the ability to stay asleep. So chronic stress will cause sleep deprivation, and sleep deprivation will make the HPA axis more dysregulated. It will cause more problems. Okay, so this with the sleep deprivation will also cause elevated or erratic cortisol levels, which disrupt the normal circadian rhythms. Let me read that again. Elevated or erratic cortisol disrupts normal circadian rhythms, which will affect sleep. So you see there's a circle. Chronic stress causes sleep deprivation, and sleep deprivation causes HPA axis dysregulation. This makes it difficult to enter deep restorative sleep, especially slow wave and REM sleep. People say to me, "Oh, I don't have a problem sleeping. I can go to bed and I can just go into bed and fall asleep." And I tell them, "You may be sleeping, but not having quality or restorative sleep, right?" Okay. So the result of sleep and HPA balance, right? So when you are sleep deprived, and that is affecting your HPA balance, your HPA axis, these are the problems that can result: impaired memory and concentration, mood instability, anxiety, depression, and irritability, weight gain due to insulin resistance and hunger hormone balance, lowered immune function, increased risk of hypertension, diabetes, and cardiovascular diseases. So what we have just witnessed is that there's a correlation between a dysregulated HPA axis and chronic sleep and these common health issues. In other words, sleep deprivation, sleep deprivation and chronic stress combined together creates a time bomb with your health. And both of them are involved with high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and we couldn't go on with the list. So, how to sleep your way to health? I told someone I teach one of the things I do is I teach people how to sleep. And the person said to me, "You have to teach people how to sleep?" I said, "Yeah, most people don't know how to sleep." Closing your eyes and going to a state of unconsciousness doesn't mean that you're getting the restorative sleep. You can sleep, but not getting the sleep that you need to restore health to the body, right? So how do you sleep your way to health? And as I mentioned before, it will take for me to get into more details with the stress management and the HPA dysregulation. It takes time, but I just want to give you that which is relevant. So to have good sleep, restorative sleep, sleep for health, the first thing you want to remember is to maintain a constant sleep schedule. Go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, even on weekends. Regularity is one of the key ways of making sure that you're getting restorative sleep. Okay? Another one is relaxing bedtime routine. Avoid screens, phone, TV, computer at least 30 to 60 minutes before bedtime. Blue light disrupts melatonin. Now, what happens? So these lights here, during, in the presence of daylight, like we've seen outside, the body produces, the brain produces melatonin. And melatonin is your main sleep hormone, right? When the sun goes down, the melatonin is released so that you can sleep. These lights are designed to mimic daylight. So what do you think happens when you turn on your lights? What happens to the melatonin? It's blocked. It's not released. It's blocked. So I'm going to bed early, right? I'm going to bed at 8 o'clock. But I turn off my TV, my phones, my computer 2 minutes before going to bed. But I'm going to bed at 8 o'clock. Does that help? No, even though you're going to bed at 8 o'clock, it takes 90 minutes for that melatonin to be released so that you can get quality sleep. So when I'm teaching sleep hygiene, I tell folks, I recommend that you turn your lights off and your TV at least, it's supposed to be 90 minutes, but I give people 45 minutes because it's going to be hard if you're not in the habit of doing it. Even half an hour. Start with half an hour. Start with 15 minutes. Turn your lights off. What we did, when I studied sleep science, I went on Amazon and got these bulbs. You can go and look for them. You can type in sleep bulbs. And the spectrum, it's like an orange, yellowish color. And I have an extra lamp in the living room where if I have to use light after a certain time, I will turn that on. You can still see. It's not like these lights. It's the same color, almost like a candlelight or a lamp. But you can still see, but it doesn't block the release of melatonin. All right, and you have them with the night lights also. So, oh, that's my phone. Yeah. Yes, please. Okay. Oh, that's my. Okay, yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So here's what I do, right? We have to be realistic, right, and practical. We still have to use our phone. We may still have to use our phone, but on the phone there is a night mode. So you turn on the night mode, and you might not be able to see it, but it's a different light spectrum. The same thing with my laptop. I put a laptop in night mode, and you see a kind of orangish, yellowish hue. Do you know, the first time I really realized that the light from the computer screen is blue, the first time I put it into night mode, and when I turn it off from night mode, there was a light blue that flashed before my eyes. But you don't normally see it. And so you may have to use your laptop, you may have to use your phone, but put it on night mode. The TV, you definitely don't want your TV on, because the blue light really disrupts your circadian rhythm. Your body clock is disturbed by the light that comes from the TV. So if you have a TV and you must watch TV, make sure it's off at least 30 minutes to an hour before bedtime. Give your brain a chance to release the melatonin so that you can get good sleep. Take a warm bath or shower to relax the muscles. Drink a cup of relaxing herbal tea. And before since I'm giving recommendations, I want to say I'm not a medical doctor, and I'm not here to diagnose, treat, cure, prevent any disease. I'm just giving information. Okay? All right. So you can drink a cup of relaxing tea, and that, yeah. Yes, and please, yeah, just tell him that I'll call. So you can drink a cup of relaxing tea. Brother Naranjo mentioned passion flower. Passion flower, hops, those are really excellent teas for getting good sleep. And keep your bedroom cool. Use blackout curtains and reduce noise. Invest in comfortable mattress and pillows. So here's the thing. The key here is plan for sleep. We plan everything else in life. So what we want to do is plan for sleep. Plan. Make a plan. I'm going to go to bed at such and such a time at night. I'm going to do such and such to make sure that I'm getting good sleep. All right? Now, walking. Walking does two things here. It helps with the stress and it helps with the sleep. So as far as the stress is concerned, so a quick reset. This is a 5 to 10 minute walk. It's a quick reset. A short walk can break the cycle of stress by shifting focus away from stressors. I can tell you that from experience. It helps regulate breathing and clear mental fog. Walking is amazing. It is it's ideal for a quick mental reset during a busy day. All right, so that's the number one stress buster. Moderate, which would be 20 to 30 minutes. It lowers cholesterol and adrenaline level, reducing overall stress. I'm sorry, I keep saying cholesterol. I mean cortisol. Cortisol is very important when we're talking about stress. Right? It's the cortisol that stimulates the blood pressure and the blood sugar and the heart rate and so forth. So you want to keep the cortisol level as low as possible. So if you're under stress, taking a moderate 20 to 30 minute walk, well, not a moderate walk, but as far as pace, but it means just for 20 to 30 minutes, that will lower your cortisol and adrenaline levels, both stress hormones, reducing overall stress. Then, increase endorphins and serotonin. It increases endorphins and serotonin, which improves your mood. All right? Have you ever noticed that when you're under stress, you can be irritable? You can have that bad mood? Yes. So a quick walk. You're fussing with somebody, you're stressed, you're upset. Let's go take a walk. And you come back feeling better. And it enhances circulation and oxygen flow to the brain, promoting relaxation. Walking outdoors, especially in nature, adds an extra calming effect. And you know what's best? Walking in the sunlight. Then you have the extended walk for 45 to 60 minutes. Engages the parasympathetic nervous system, promoting deep relaxation. Improves cardiovascular health, which is linked to better stress resilience, and allow for problem solving and creative thinking by giving the mind space to wander. Okay. All right. So those are some of the key things. So since I have some more time, I'm going to get into some more stuff. And we're talking about stress management, right? How are some of the ways to manage our stress? And another way of managing our stress besides the walking is, and especially for the sake of helping our HPA access to function normal again. So besides exercise, walking, deep breathing. Practice deep breathing, mindfulness. What does mindfulness mean? Okay. Think positively. Oh, by the way, talking about thinking positively, so there are some biblical principles that we can use for stress management. Right? Now, whatever we think, our thoughts produce chemical reactions. Right? There is no thought without a chemical reaction. Now, for example, when you have oxytocin, which hormone is that? That's the love hormone, right? Yeah. When you hug someone, the reaction is oxytocin, right? And what that does, those all types of hormones have an impact on the body. You know, I like how Sister White says it in the book Mind, Character, and Personality. She says the brain, the nerves of the brain affect the rest of the communicates with the rest of the body as by telegraph wires. Right? When you think of good thoughts, and then scientists tell us the brain was wired for love. Not love in the sense of a relationship, but love in the sense of kindness, compassion. Anything that's good as far as your thoughts are concerned. Anything that's good, that's all that the brain was wired for. All right? So when you have good thoughts, so the brain picks up these good thoughts, it responds, and then it sends chemicals to the rest of the body. It sends messages to all the organs of the body. And that's what she said. She said the brain controls the function of every organ. And that is something science has proven. In fact, I found the science before I read her writings about that. So when we think good thoughts, what kind of messages goes to our heart and her liver and her kidneys, etc.? Good messages. And the messages that those organs and systems interprets the message as if what they are hearing is function better. Function better. So when we think good thoughts, good chemicals are released. Then you have like dopamine, for example. That's that pleasure hormone. You think about going to your fancy restaurant with your spouse, and you think about the nice Korean food that you're going to have, and it gives you a good feeling. Yeah. A merry heart do it good like a medicine. Proverbs 17. And check this out. You know, okay, let's talk about that. A merry heart does good like a medicine, but a broken spirit dries up the bones. Do you know where our natural killer cells and our white blood cells are formed? In the bone marrow. Studies have shown that when we're under stress, or because of the high cortisol level and other reasons, our immune system becomes lowered. Our resistance becomes lowered. So, but a merry heart will boost our immune system. And like I said, because the brain is responding to those good thoughts, the rest of the organs are functioning amazingly well. So what are we told in Philippians 4 and verse 8? Whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are good, etc. Think on these things. Brothers and sisters, that's one of my antidotes for stress. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed upon thee, because he trusteth in thee. I'll give you an example. I'll give you two examples. I have had to come to a point in life where I had to be able to say, for me to teach this, I had to be able to say, I can tell you from experience. So I had to practice it. I had to. Do you know that worrying is a habit? Worrying, I believe worrying is actually an addiction. Right. Anything that's not of faith and it's a sin, right? I have to say that one softly though, but the reality is anything that's not of faith is a sin. And the thing is, it's not that we don't trust God. I remember times when I would say, Lord, I trust you, I believe you, I know you can do this for me, I know you can come through, but somehow in my heart there is this fear that's trying to find its way in there. Take it away, Lord. Like the man said to Jesus, I believe, Lord, help thou my unbelief. So I have learned that I have to be deliberate and intentional about minding my mind. So one day I'm having a crisis in my life, and then there's this letter that came in the mail And it was like a sledgehammer just driving the last piece of nail down in the wood. And you ever gone through that where you feel like your head is going to just pop open? You're so overwhelmed, and you're feeling dizzy, like you're going to faint. So I started to feel that way, and I said, wait a minute. I told my wife, I said, honey, I'm going outside. I need to go and have a talk with God, because I cannot allow what I'm feeling at that moment, I cannot allow it to go on, but I have to do something. So I walk outside, and this is me. Lord, in front of me is a thick, dark cloud. Lord, the cloud is thick, and it's dark. But you know what, Lord? I'm going to make the choice to look beyond that cloud and see your promises. And that's what I'm going to focus on. I am no longer focusing on this cloud. I'm focusing on what's behind there. And I'm going to praise you for your promises and for what you're going to do. And that's what I did. And I walked a few blocks, and I'm praising God, giving him honor and glory, and thanking him for all these things. No, that's a choice I had to make. I can choose to worry and to stress over this major issue, or I can choose to do something different, do what the Bible says, and everything give thanks. And you know something? By the time I reached the third block, I found the solutions to all of those things. Within about less than a minute, I started to feel this peace. This overwhelming stress vanished, and there was peace. Now, someone might say, well, how could you do that when you're going through that experience? That's the last thing you feel like doing. And I tell them, it has nothing to do with feeling. I just know that I can't allow this to fester. So I'm going to be deliberate and intentional in switching my brain from fear mode to love mode. But it takes a while. You have to practice it, and you have to break the habit of worry. So right now, as the sister was saying, I live a worry-free life. There's so much I can tell you. There's a lot of stressors because, as remember, the three Hebrew boys, they were under a major crisis. All right. So as long as we choose, like the Hebrew boys, to stand for truth and for righteousness, you're going to be attacked. You're going to be in the water. You're going to be in the fire. But what does the Bible say? Do you walk through? No, in Isaiah 43. How does it go again? You're going to go through the water. They're not going to overflow you, and the fire. Right. Managing stress, being worry-free doesn't mean there's nothing to worry about. But what it means is that you're going to choose to switch your brain off from the worrying mode to love mode. And I call it love mode because you're dealing with God now. So we're on a mission trip, and when we arrived, I don't remember if I shared that the other day. When we arrived in the country, I realized all my clothes that was left. The suitcase with all my clothes was left back in the States. So now I have 3 days. Maybe it might come 2 days later. And you're in a tropical country and you're sweating like crazy, and you don't know what you're gonna change into after you have a shower. And I just started praising God. I just started thanking him for bringing us safely, helping us to get through the immigration without any problems, and thanking him for the wonderful things he's going to do. And the sister turns to me and she said, "You must be crazy." I said, "Why?" She said, "You don't have your clothes and you're rejoicing." I said, "Isn't that what we're told to do? And everything give thanks? Rejoice in the Lord always." And again, I say rejoice. I gave her a mini lecture telling her what would happen to my body, what would happen to my immune system if I were to get upset and worry and become stressed over it. So one of the things to do to manage our stress is to practice what the Bible says. Think on those positive things. Keep your mind on that. Keep your mind on God. Keep your mind on Jesus, because He said, "Thou will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed upon thee, because he trusteth in thee." So here, my morning routine is this. I don't wait for something to happen for me to rejoice. I practice rejoicing and thankfulness the same way I know I have to eat every day, I have to drink water, etc. So every morning when I get up after my devotion and all that, I'll go and stand by my kitchen window. That's the first place I go after I get up. And I look through the window, and there's a sun, and I say, "Lord," I said, "Praise you for the sun." The fact that the sun is out tells me that you are still in control. You are still there. And there's this nice hedge outside on my window growing. And I said, "Wait a minute. The plants are still growing. Think about the trees out there that nobody waters. And it's still growing. And there are the birds, if it's springtime or summertime." But you know what I'm saying? I recognize, I acknowledge rather, that God is still in existence. And because He is still in existence, guess what? I am going to be okay. All is going to be well. And that is what I do. I do that maybe 2 or 3 times a day. That is how I get my dose of dopamine. That is how I get my dose of dopamine. I don't wait for something exciting to happen. I make it happen through rejoicing. Because while I'm rejoicing and being thankful, the brain is picking that up. And it's responding. And every portion of my body is responding. And I want to share that with you, to practice it. Don't wait for something good to happen. Just intentionally and deliberately practice praising God and giving Him thanks, acknowledging all these good things that are happening in your life. And that is going to release those good chemicals. Your HPA is going to become regulated. It's going to help it. HPA regulation is going to help, because during praise and thanksgiving, cortisol level drops also. It has been shown. And watch and see how your body can start to heal. And you can start to maintain good health. One of the things, and for those of you, because I do parenting seminars, and a lot of parents, most parents, they're stressed over their children. I'm talking about the Christian parents, because their children are not going to church. Some parents, some children, they don't talk to their parents, and so they're stressed. And I tell folks, used to be a time when I used to stress and worry over my children. You worry about their salvation. And one day, as I was going to work, I thought about, I'm praying, I'm talking to God all the way, thanking Him for His blessings and asking Him for guidance and help and provision for the day. And when it came to my children, I thought came to me, and I said, wait a minute. When I pray and ask God for protection and provision, I believe, right? I believe that He is going to answer. Why can't I believe the same thing for my children? So from that day, my worrying over my children ceased. And you know what I do now? Every day, I thank Him and I praise Him for keeping my children and for saving them. He promised, I will contend with them that contend with thee, and I will save thy children. Do I believe that? Yes, I do. So then why am I going to worry about then? Absolutely no need. So I thank Him for that. And all the other things that may cause stress, I thank Him for. Thank Him for the blessings, because He has promised. Rejoice in the Lord always. And again I say rejoice. Be careful for nothing, but in everything with prayer, supplication, and thanksgiving, let your requests be made known. And what's going to happen after that? And the peace. When we do that, the peace that passeth all understanding, as Jesus visits Jesus' office, that will take control. Peace will come like a coat in the winter, and it will cover you, cover your heart. And what an amazing life you would experience. I tell folks, my life is amazing. I live an amazing life because I have developed the habit of walking, staying in that love zone. And whenever the spirit of fear and anxiety try to come in, I just send it back. I send it back because that's not of God. You know, God only offers peace and joy. Okay, well, I think, I hope by God's grace that I've shared something today that can benefit all of us. And I want to encourage you to, the sleep may be a little challenging, it may take some time, but start planning for sleep. The walking is easy. All right, even if you walk around your house. Even if it's in the house, walk up and down. I do that sometimes. If I can't go out, if it's too cold, I walk in the house up and down. And practice praise and thanksgiving. Amen. How much does it cost for that? Nothing. Just those three things. Praise and thanksgiving, walking, and what's the other one? Yeah, and you know, praise and thanksgiving and planning your sleep, and your walking. If you can just start with those three things. And when I see you again, I would like to hear a report. Let us pray. Father in heaven, we thank you for your love, your mercy, and your grace. You've been so good to us, and we just appreciate you for that. And we pray that what you have taught us or reminded us of today, give us the power and the grace and the strength to put these things into practice so that we can experience your abundant peace in Jesus' name. Amen. So I have 1 minute. Any question? Or if you have any questions before the bell rings.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, God bless you all.